greatness. Most people allow their fear of failure to outweigh their desire to succeed. When you're willing to fail again and again and again, when you make up your mind to become unstoppable, when you make up your mind to become a no matter what person, then that will then give birth to a part of yourself that you don't know right now.
Imagine, if you will, being on your deathbed and standing around your bed, the ghost of the dreams, the ideas, the abilities, the talents given to you by life, and that you, for whatever reason, you never went after that dream. You never acted on those ideas. You never used those talents. You never used those gifts. And there they are standing around your bed looking at you with large angry eyes saying, we came to you and only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever. See, most people stop short of their dreams and park and get off the highway of life because of the rejections of life. You will always be rejected. It's no big deal. Jack Canfield said rejection is a myth. It's not like when somebody says no and then they slap you. No, it's just, to make no your vitamin. Get excited about the no. Why? Because every time someone says no, that brings you another step to a yes. You're getting closer. Trust me, you will win if you don't quit. You will win if you don't quit. Even a broke clock is right twice a day. As you go through the challenges of life and you look at it and embrace whatever comes to you, don't run from it. Step toward it. Don't try and duck it like most people do. See, most people want it easy. See, if you, easy come, easy what? Easy go. See, but when you go at what you're going to deal with and you deal with the difficulties of it, when you handle those hard things close at hand, making those hard decisions right now that you don't want to make, learning those things that you don't like to do, but you know that in order for you to get where you want to go, this is one of the hoops that you have to flip through. And I'm saying to you, whatever you got to do it, because if you don't, life is going to whoop you until you surrender. You have something that you brought to the universe. And that if you decide that my life deserves my developing this, what I do well, and becoming the best at it and mastering myself and seeing what I have.
There's no saying. Those who forget their past are doomed to repeat it. Scary part about that, y'all, is when you see it happening. It was Dr. Martin Luther King that said, I hope to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But then there was somebody else that said, if it's my time, then it's my time. All I want to hear is servant, job well done. Job well done. Grand risings. For many of you, you are about to hear something that you've never heard before. For a lot of you, you've probably heard a version of it. And for the rest of you, you've been straight up lied to. Come here, boy. Because you're just trying to get some of this word too, huh? I hear you. Go ahead with that. 5 years ago, to this day, I remember we were already caught up in a lot of high-profile shootings by police officers of black men. There were all kind of demonstrations going on, and people were rioting, and this was the time of Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice. All of these cases were happening. And there were a lot of us who thought that those days were gone, that when it started up again, that what is this? So immediately, a lot of us were like, not no, but held to the no. We weren't going to allow it to come back. We would go anywhere, be anywhere to confront this threat, not to protest, but to confront the threat, because those of us that remembered were like, oh, we're not letting that come back. That can't come back. That's how we felt. Even the world was shocked that these things were starting to come back again. Y'all know what I'm saying? So we became the front line. We all went out ready to fight, ready to do whatever it took for us to do to put that demon, that genie, back in the bottle. And then every time we thought we was making some progress, every time we thought we were taking one step ahead, something would happen and we would be pushed back to the point where we were like, well, what are we not doing? Maybe we need to, turn the pressure up a little bit. And I remember at the time that I didn't really understand the gravity of what was coming our way. And so you can imagine how I felt. This is after the Walter Scott shooting in Charleston. If you don't know the situation about Walter Scott was a retired Navy veteran who was the drummer in the church, who was gunned down by a Charleston police officer who shot him in the back while he was running from him over something simple as unpaid child support. And then the officer tried to cover it up, and they didn't render any first aid. And what they didn't know was that a young man who just happened to be passing through the back alleyway got it on video. And when that video came out, the city of Charleston, I'm going to be honest, they did the right thing. They immediately fired that police officer and arrested him and threw him in jail and denied him bond. And they were very transparent. And that the turning point was that up until that point, the people that were getting shot by the police were young black men. And so, there was this stigmatism that, thanks to people like Hillary Clinton, that had labeled young black teens as vicious animals that needed to be brought to heel, as she said. And, because of the economic conditions in a lot of the black neighborhoods that were no fault of their own, a lot of these young kids were doing whatever they could to survive. And that included drug dealing, stealing, whatever they had to do. There were no silver spoons in their mouths, but they were not animals. So when these kids started getting shot, there were some folks who just kind of didn't get involved. They were like, well, that's young kids. They got to learn to simmer down. That's what everybody was thinking, the older cats. But when they shot Walter Scott, this was an older gentleman who had retired from the military, had a pretty decent life and came from a big family and was well established in the community. And overnight, we all started thinking, if they could shoot somebody like him down and then try to cover it up, they'll do that to any of us. And that's when it was time for everybody, all hands off the deck. And so we went down to Charleston. And because the city was so transparent, and because they were so quick to try to, put this fire out, there really wasn't a whole lot of protesting that, you know, that had any purpose. It was like, okay, yeah, we upset, we angry. And I remember all of the different elements that swirled around that situation to try to give the United States some reassurance that this was a problem that we were going to fix, right? 5 years ago. Hold on a second. I'm going to throw something at you, and it's going to be on video, okay? We're not going to compete for attention right now. I'm not in the mood. So you need to go find something else to do or sit your ass down right here and stop trying to get into the shot. It's not working, bro. Y'all forgive me. But whenever I talk about this, he get amped too, because he don't like white people. And I don't know. I didn't do it. He's that way. Y'all seen him with me. He just goes off on white folks. I started talking about white folks, all of a sudden he wanted to get in the picture like, yo, let me tell y'all, this is exact, but you can't talk, bruh. That's the only, come here. Come here, come over here. No, come here. We're going to get this done one way or the other. Let me explain something. Look, see, there go the people, right? See that? You can't be in this. Okay, I'm trying to talk to the people. I'm going to show you some love later, okay? All right? Yeah. I'll let you bite on some white people, all right? Oh, yes, my boy. Now get out of here. Go. You're too big to be in the room. All right. So, as I was saying, it got to the point where, you know, it looked like this was something that was going to be shut down. I remember sitting in the memorial service for Walter Scott, sitting next to members of the Department of Justice, sitting next to Senator Pinckney and sitting next to the congressman and sitting with then Governor Nikki Haley and then sitting with the former governor. This is how serious this was, guys. Sitting with members of the upper echelons of the U.S. government that came down to Charleston to make sure that this was handled and that it would not happen again and that justice would be served and that everybody was going to be all right, even to go so far as to give that man a presidential level funeral. It was something to watch. However, when we were there, I remember that it was also a time to get things done, you know, while the attention of the world was there. Okay. Somebody said the damn dog is more handsome than me. You know what? But all men are dogs, right? Well, we could talk about that on another show. Anyway, what you smiling for? Now he's smiling. Anyway, make a long story short. One of the things that came out of that situation was, if y'all remember who was there 5 years ago, you know, you had the push to go to the floor of the South Carolina legislature and get a law passed that would require all law enforcement officials in the state of South Carolina to now wear body cams. And that law is in effect to this day. Now, they weren't happy about it. We knew that. But the fact of the matter was, body cams were supposed to be the save all. As you all have seen in the last 5 years, they go around body cams. The original design for the body cams was that they could never turn them off. The original design for the body cams was that the data would be transmitted back to a central location that had nothing to do with the police department. So the police department couldn't even turn it off. That was what was proposed. And everybody said, yeah, well, how are we going to pay for them and all that bullshit? They didn't care. They was like, get it done, get them deployed, blah, 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 blah. And right after that happened, everybody was like, cool, we have arrived. So you can imagine that I left South Carolina thinking that, you know, this thing actually works. This really works. We can actually talk to these folks, get some stuff done. Things go wrong, we fix them, we move on. Wasn't long after that I remember coming home and my then wife, because I'm divorced, my then wife met me and said, you got to come see this. And I'm like, what happened now? Because it was always something. And I just sat there and I watched the news of what had happened. And they were talking about that someone had gone into a church, South Carolina, and that they had killed all of these people. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm trying to take it all in. What are you talking about? Come on, this is not making sense to me, yada, 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 yada. Well, let me help you out because I'm walking history for you right now. When Walter Scott had his funeral, I was at the funeral home the morning of his funeral because I was supposed to meet the representatives of the NAACP and a few other folks there. So I was there extra early before the media got there, when they were still, they had the gentleman's body and they were getting everything ready. And I'm standing off to the side, waiting. And I remember when they were saying they were going to do something different. They were going to, instead of taking his body, they were supposed to take it, to the family's home. And then from there, they weren't going to bury him in Charleston. They were going to bury him. They were going to have the service in another town and then come back to Charleston for the actual internment. So we were going to follow them. And I remember there was a group of men that worked at that funeral home. And they said, but before we can take Mr. Scott, there was another body that they had to drop off at a church. So they said, if you follow us, you're going to follow us to this church first. And then from the church, we'll then proceed to the family's home. And then from the family's home, we'll go, that whole 9 yards. So I'm like, cool, no problem. I'm strapping young man. How can I help? Blah, 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 blah. We all go to this church in downtown Charleston. And this is what I mean about the irony of this. If I had never done this, I would not have known what had happened when I heard the other news. Because when they got to this other church, they said, we need help taking the body up the stairs into this church. This was the Mother Emanuel Church. At the time, I did not know the significance of this church that it would play in history. So I helped them take the body up the stairs of that church. And they took it in, they dropped the body off, We left, and then we go on to the Walter Scott situation. Now roll the clock ahead, and now I'm watching the news, and I know exactly what church this is they're talking about because I've been there. And I'm going, what happened? And the story is unfolding, and I'm going, wait a minute. One of the people that they named was someone that I sat and talked with about the whole body cam situation in South Carolina that was willing to go to the floor of the South Carolina legislature. And I'm sitting there going, well, he's a sitting congressman. What do you mean he got killed in my mind is like completely blown, y'all. I'm like, no, hold on a minute. The hell happened here? And as the story began to unfold, as we began to learn what had actually happened, I don't think that I packed my bags fast enough. I don't think that I don't think that I ever moved on a situation so fast, because he was a good man. He was an intelligent man. He was a preacher. He was a pastor, but he was a congressman, a sitting congressman of the United States. And I'm hearing that he was shot and killed in his church with his worshipers. By who? So 5 years ago, yesterday was the actual day that the killings happened, in case you all don't know. It was 5 years ago yesterday that a white supremacist, young white supremacist, whose name I will not mention. I don't give him I don't raise his name up. Allegedly drove all the way from Columbia, South Carolina down to Charleston, which is quite a ride, which I never could figure out why, if you wanted to kill black folks in a church, why didn't you just go to one of the ones right there in Columbia? Why did you have to go all the way to Charleston to kill these people, but more specifically to target this congressman who was responsible for the body cams that came out of the Walter Scott situation? Additionally, just to be fair in this discussion this morning, at the time that this happened, I was still under the influence of the slave master's religion. I still believed in the Holy Ghost and Jesus Christ and the Trinity. I believed that the gospel of the 66 books that had been canonized I was a believer then. And in my mind, it was more devastating that they attacked the church than the fact that they attacked these people because they were black. I'm showing you all how they control us with religion. I couldn't even see my racial rage beyond my religious rage. I was more so upset that you would attack a house of God, that you would enter into his holy temple and then execute the man of God and those people who were worshiping at the time. You see how that overrode my racial rage? It wasn't that a white boy went down there and killed a bunch of black people. It was the fact that you entered into a church and you killed these people while they had their head in the book. And so I returned to Charleston. When I returned to Charleston, I saw what I expected to see. Yes, I saw a lot of people who were shocked. I saw a nation that was grieving again. I saw a lot of anger. The anger wasn't directed at the police department. The anger was directed at white supremacists, racists. That's who the anger was directed at. But I also saw how disjointed we were. I saw how unorganized we were. I saw how there was no consensus, black people, of how you wanted this to be handled. What was the response going to be? And not to mention images of the perpetrator being arrested peacefully and then giving a ride to get something to eat on his way to being incarcerated only infuriated us even more. On the ground, the people in South Carolina were saying, oh, that's nothing but the tip of the iceberg. South Carolina, South Click, if you own here, you know I'm telling the truth because I was there. Dead in the middle of it. And it was that they were trying to stop a powder keg from exploding. Let's get this one handled the way we handled the Walter Scott situation. But instead, what I saw instead was a division because there were those folks who just wanted to burn the damn town to the ground, kill all the white people and just live in anarchy with no type of a fallback plan or a support instruct. They just wanted to tear up shit. And that was it. Well, that wasn't going to work. Then there was this other group of people who were looking at it from a religious perspective. And they were like, no, these were believers that were killed by the enemy and their souls need to be uplifted. And there was that part going on. And then there was the traditional in the middle attitude that, look, y'all, we got to come together and unify. We can't let this consume us like this. We cannot be consumed by hatred. We have got to I saw somebody in the comments said there was no leadership. Bingo. You hit the nail right on the head. There was no leadership. There was no one focal point that people could go to say, can you go talk to your people for us? Find out what they want, write down their demands, bring them back to us so we can sit at the table and try to at least help y'all and meet y'all halfway. There was nobody out there that was doing that. It was just anger and people just running around. And you got to realize that you're still in the dirty South. So at the end of the day, you're outnumbered, you're outgunned, you're out-resourced. So is that really what you wanted? But y'all was acting like you wanted it and it just got crazy. Oh, it was y'all acting like this, what's happening now? Trust me, 5 years ago, today, I watched from a distance and I watched the whole thing imploding. And then I watched our president at the time, Barack Obama, go on TV and talk about how this had visibly shaken him and disturbed him. And that he too was distressed that it was a sitting congressman. You see, the media tried to downplay that. They kept saying he was a reverend, he was a pastor. They'd be like, no. This was a sitting congressman that was assassinated. But they, they had a bunch of white boys who was Republicans that was playing baseball. Y'all remember they was playing baseball at the little baseball diamond over there in D.C. and somebody rolled up and aired the joint out. Oh, it was breaking news. Congressman attacked. But for Senator Pinckney and all of the people who were with him, it was just, they broke it down to this little story about it was a reverend in the church with his parishioners and they got shot. We're like, no, this is bigger than that. This is much bigger than that. And I watched like I always do. I watch first. I'm very analytical. I don't just jump into other people's business unless I don't see them handling their business and it might affect me in the long run. So I went back to Charleston, South Carolina to pay my respects to my friend. I didn't come to make a speech. I didn't come to protest. I didn't come to demonstrate. We had already done all of that and everything was supposed to be good and fine in South Carolina. But we get down there and things are just as chaotic as before. There were a lot of people that came out of that situation that tried to be leaders and tried to step to the front, but they couldn't build a consensus. When I came back down there, I had already learned my lesson at the hands of these people before, that sometimes you got to let family fight family to fix family. You can't get in the middle of it. So I came back this time just to pay my respects. And while I was there, I watched the division between the young folks and the old folks who represented the organizations like the NAACP and the National Action Network and, the usual suspects. But what made this different was that because this was a sitting U.S. congressman, that the president himself and all of the members of Congress and all of the members of the House of Representatives and all of their aides, all of the significant folks in the game, Michelle Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Jesse Jackson, and you name them, they was there. All of the big wigs were coming to Charleston to lay to rest this sitting congressman. Plus all of the clergy of America, every high profile preacher that you can find on the worship network, every high profile person I'm talking everybody from Hezekiah to Creflo. I mean, everybody that wore a collar was there. The whole AME was there. This was a huge event. There were 8 other people in that church that were murdered. There were 8 other people whose lives were cut short while they were worshiping. Conspiracy theorists will tell us that it was a hit, that it was payback for what had happened before, for them putting away, because the white boy went to jail. They used to be a cop. And now they got to wear body cams and the black folks felt empowered and they didn't like that shit. They didn't. 5 years ago today. So, and I'm telling y'all this because they've gone out and done their best to erase this. They're erasing our history. They've already erased the Million Man March. That's nowhere in the history books anymore. And it really happened. They're erasing the truth about what really happened down there also. So since I'm a living witness and a living participant on this day, I want to pay homage to those 9 people who are casualties of an ongoing war against us as a people in a country that was built by us for white folks. So I go down. Yes, I go down. And, yes, I did go to that same church that I was at earlier that I had helped take a body into. But now it's a shrine. Now it's media everywhere. Now there are people all out there crying. And It was sad, y'all. It was, oh my God, it was so sad. You had to, the emotion in the air was 10 times more than what we're seeing today. It was so thick you could touch it with a knife. It was a moment. So I decided that I was going to do something while I was there because nobody else was doing anything that actually spoke to the issue. Without going to any of these so-called activist groups, no, we didn't pick up the phone and call Black Lives Matter. No, we didn't pick up the phone and call the NAACP. No, nobody thought to call Al Sharpton and the gang, Cool and the gang, whatever you want to call them. No, nobody picked up the phone and called the Urban League. Nobody called any of those people. Instead, what we did was we just went on Facebook because Facebook was big then. Facebook was really the place to be. Instagram didn't exist. Facebook existed. So we went on Facebook and came up with this idea. If we could get just enough people, if you know anything about Charleston, Charleston is split. There's North Charleston and there's South Charleston. North Charleston, Mount Pleasant, is very wealthy, suburbish, affluent, and white. South Charleston, which is where all the jobs used to be until they took away the Boeing plant and the Navy or whatever was going on. But here you have most of your black and brown folks that, you know, they're over policed and jobs are scarce and they hassle the club owners and they overtax them. There's all kind of craziness going on. Y'all know I've been down. I know. So there's a bridge that spans North and South Charleston, South Carolina, the Arthur Ravenel Bridge. He is a racist, but we'll deal with that later. But this was a beautifully 2-mile long bridge. If you go, you see it's got the spires with the cables that come down. Very beautiful bridge. The idea was if we could get up on that bridge and get a bunch of people just to lock arms, we would make a chain across the entire bridge. And then for 9 seconds, we would be quiet for each one of the 9 victims. That's all we were going. This had nothing to, it was not a protest. It was not a march. It was just an expression that, remember, these were not, to us, they were believers that had been killed for their beliefs, not for the color of their skin. You see how religion can control you? So we put the word out on Facebook, and there were, you know, I wasn't the only one involved. There were quite a few folks that were involved with getting the word out. And I remember the day of, this was going to be a joint venture. It grew. In matter of fact, it grew so huge. What I'm about to tell you, this is why they don't want you to see this in the history books. We expected 1,000, maybe at best 1,000. 33,000 people showed up. Let me say that again. 33,000. That was more people than could fit on that bridge. And they came from both sides of the bridge. And they were black, white, yellow, purple, humpbacks, midgets, wheelchairs. They came. Oh, and they came. And they kept coming. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? What we decided to do turned into something so huge that it sent a message that scared. Not only did it scare white America that wanted us gone, but it also scared these same old want to get out front and talk about it and do nothing black folks that know that if we ever fix this, they won't have a reason to exist anymore. And they had nothing to do with it. I'm here to tell the story because I was at the center of it. When we led them onto the bridge, the image of a black man, leading a group of black people with white folks coming up the rear, 33,000 strong, to stand on a bridge with people who couldn't even get on the bridge, pulling up in ships and boats with their horns blowing, choppers in the air, looking down on this multitude of people that came, and they kept coming. They couldn't get on the bridge, but they knew that at the center of that bridge, I was there with the people with our hands up in the air. Those pictures are still available if you go out and search for them. As a matter of fact, CNN declared that the picture of this bracelet that I'm wearing and my fist clasped with a few other people was the picture of the year, yet they try to erase the story. Oh, when the other activist groups found out what happened, they were quick to denounce it, said it was a fraud, said that it was fake. 33,000 people is not fake at all. And for 1 second, for one moment, for one inkling in time, I saw what Martin Luther King saw. I saw all of these people, a multitude, a rainbow of people loving on each other and hugging on each other. And it was incredible. The police and the fire departments did not fight us. They joined in so that I could be heard across the entire bridge. They put their police units on the same frequency as the chief, who gave me the mic. So when I talk, you could hear me up and down the bridge. They brought in EMS, and everybody was on one accord because we thought we could stop this and fix it. And damn it, we all gonna come together. And I too, for 1 second, believed the I have a dream shit was real. If you want to know, ABC News wanted to do a story with me. People Magazine did a story. Washington Post, the New York Post. Every network began to pick up what had happened. Because you see, this wasn't something that was a protest. It wasn't a march. It was a memorialization of the folks that had died. It was the least I could do for Senator Pinckney and the other 8 people who lost their lives. And it was then that someone said to me, that is too much power for one black man to have. And after that, I was attacked by the very individuals that run around today calling themselves BLM, because they said, we don't want another Malcolm X. We don't want another Martin Luther King. We don't want another Stokely Carmichael. Matter of fact, we don't want another black man at the front of this movement. Shut the front door. And I watch my own people. I watch my own people, and I begin to realize that our problem is not just them, that the majority of our problem is us. It's sad when people walk up to me today and say, hey, I love what you're doing. I mentioned you to another prominent leader and they said, I don't fuck with him. And they said, why not? He's not legit. And they said, what do you mean he's not legit? He's about empowerment, unity, and defending our people. The fuck you mean he's not legit? And they can't say nothing, because that means that what they're doing is not in your best interest. And what I'm doing was in your best interest. I left off that bridge. If you go look up the Bridge to Peace, or if you can find it. Fortunately, I had all of my people collect every video that we could find that has disappeared from YouTube, disappeared from Google. That was a great day for us people. They erased it, but we have all of the originals. So, I keep receipts. 5 years ago today, 5 years ago, that is what inspired me to run for the presidency. Because I then realized, if I got this many white people behind me, I can turn these into votes. And I can get into the White House now. And then I can use executive power to do everything that would have prevented what's happening to us today. And when those good white folks realized that I was running for president, they hurry up and made sure y'all didn't find out about that. They systematically blocked out everything that me and a bunch of other people did. You see, y'all need to understand, I've been fighting for you for a long, long time. I just had to keep changing my methodology. I tried to be peaceful. I tried to be Mr. Kumbaya. I tried to be the mediator. I tried to be the negotiator. And then I found out that I have to be the eliminator now, that I have to become the exterminator, that I have to become the separator, that I have to become the one that has got to do what nobody else wants to do, and that's pick up a gun and fight back. And even for that, some of you bourgeois Negroes are sitting around criticizing, sitting around talking about he's a plant, he's an agent. Why would you say something like that when someone comes along who tries to help you, unless you are that person, or you hate your people and you just want to put on a front like you don't? Or you get up here and you talk like you intelligent, and you talk like you know all of the scriptures, and you talk like you all about black power, and you talk like we your brothers and sisters, but you do nothing to alleviate our situation. And if anybody comes along who does want to do that, you quick to tell somebody, don't trust him, don't believe him. But the people are different today because the spirit is listening. The spirit is talking to these people. You can't bullshit them away on this one. You can't mind meld and mind mold them out of what's happening. They know that when the ancestors are talking to them, they know when the spirit is talking to the spirit, because it is written, spirit bears witness to the spirit. So all your little fleshly, worldly games of trying to hate on it when the time has come is going to fall in your face. That's why a lot of people are getting exposed right now. That's why a lot of people know that if they keep quiet, maybe the light won't hit them, without them realizing that your silence is just as telling as the fact that you're trying to say something. Other than that, think about this. All the white people in the world that's watching what's going on right now that are so silent. Silence is agreement. All the black people who see what's going on right now, and they putting forth these watered down solutions, but yet they're not doing anything. They're not putting their money behind anything. They're not trying to back anything. They're not trying to be a part of anything. That means they're a part of it. Come on now. You got a mouth any other time. You can get on the mic and say all kind of stuff. You can get on World Star and do all kind of stuff. You always on TV talking about, you always on some talk show, you always on the radio, you always want to have a debate, but you don't always do anything. So don't hate on somebody who actually comes along and wants to do something. You see, the difference between me and you is, you see, yes, I'm just as pissed off, I'm just as violent, and I'm just as ruthless, but I'm also just as intelligent, I'm just as learned, and I'm just as connected to the Father. And that's what y'all don't have. A lot of y'all are one or the other. You're not both. 5 years ago, I thought we put this demon to rest. 5 years ago, we did the Bridge to Peace, 33,000 people. And then the next day, we had the funeral. And I went to that funeral. And it was like trying to get in to see Michael Jackson. They had very tight control because the president was going to be there. And I remember I just hoped to get in and sit in the balcony and just watch the whole thing go down. If I couldn't, that was cool. I would just go home and watch it on TV. And I remember looking at how they had lined up all of the clergy, all these famous preachers. They had them all in black behind the hearse. If you were there, you remember this. And there were so many people out there with cameras taking pictures and trying to capture the moment. And I remember somebody called my name, and I turned, and it was the guy who was the head of the Department of Justice. And he remembered me from our interactions with the Walter Scott situation. And he says, "My man, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to see my friend off." And he says, "Come here, I want you to meet somebody." And they took me into a little diner that was right there near the spot. And he says, "This is my replacement. This is the person that's going to take my job, replace me at DOJ. And I want you to meet him." And he says, "Are you going in?" And I says, "Well, no, I'm just here." And he was like, "No, you're coming with me. Come on. Show you how he works. This is favor. Y'all watch how he works. It is written that when you are on a mission for Yah, he will bring you before great people." And so I'm like, "Well, okay, well, I don't have any credentials." He was like, "Man, I'm your credentials. Come on." And he walked me past all of the police, past the Secret Service, past all of these undercover cats. All of this is coming in here. And he walked me past all of that. And he took me down the side and through the back where they were bringing in all the politicians and so forth. And there was all of this law enforcement. And he said, he's good. He's good. And the next thing I know, I'm in the arena, and I'm not in the arena where the crowd is. He brought me to the backstage. The first person I ran into was Hillary Clinton. And I'm standing face to face with Hillary Clinton. I ain't got nothing to say to her. I didn't want to meet with her, but she's standing there. So I'm like, how you doing? Small talk. You know what I'm saying? Then I turn around. There's Lindsey Graham. Y'all know racist ass Lindsey Graham. He's standing there with his hair all slicked back, shining and shit. I'm like, okay, so everybody's up in this joint. And, everybody's there. And I'm backstage now. And he says, come on, we're going to seat you down. And they sat me on the front row, on the same row with Michelle and Joe and Hillary and all the rest of these clowns. I'm sorry, I got to call it like it is. And I just sat there like, okay. And the president of the United States is going to come out within arm reach of me and give the eulogy. This was why they had all these big preachers talking. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm telling y'all, this is incredible. But I didn't understand what was happening then. I told y'all and I taught you this, that he's preparing you for what's coming. And the videos are still out there. Matter of fact, if you scan down my profile, you can find the videos on this Instagram page. And there was a moment after the president came in, and then he got up and gave his great eulogy. And he came down and he said, he was talking to the family. He was talking to the family. And now I'm standing face to face with Barack Obama, President of the United States, first black president of the United States. This is history. And I remember what someone texted me on my phone. They said, you're on TV right now. You're on C-SPAN. You standing right there. And I'm like, I wasn't aware of any of this. And I had words with Mr. Obama, and that's on the video. What I said to him is between us. But it was my moment. Now I'm standing with leadership, and what I had said something along the lines was, you don't have to post, just scan down and look at my profile. See, my profile is my diary. I don't post insignificant stuff. I don't post what I'm eating. My life for the last 6 or 7 years, I have chronicled on this profile. Scan down and find it. I'm not reposting what's already happened. Y'all like to go dig up dirt on people. Y'all like to go get receipts on people. Do your due diligence on me and dig all the way down. Dig past Brunswick. Dig on down. Dig past Nipsey. Keep on digging. Dig on down. Dig on past the BET Awards. Dig on down. Dig on down past the presidential campaign. Dig on down, and you're going to start to see, oh shit, he was there. He was there. He this, he was that. He was, oh, go have one of those moments. I'm not reposting jack shit. It's been 5 years. Those who don't remember their past are doomed to repeat it. 5 years ago today. 5 years ago today. So after meeting the president and seeing all of the congressional members and seeing all of the House of Representatives and seeing all of their aides and seeing all of the folks that had something to do with the South Carolina legislature there, and all of these people, I actually believed that I had a shot at winning the presidency and helping black folks once and for all. And from that point, I left the movement, because you cannot run for president and still just support black people. You have to be the president of all people, even if your plan is to help black people. You understand what I'm saying? Everyone who goes into the White House, in their mind, they already know who they gonna help. 5 years ago, that was 5 years ago today. I used to look back on those days and I look at what happened since. I watched the movement get hijacked. I watched individuals eat off of the movement. I watched people posture on the shoulders of their parents, as if because your parent was great, you great too. Doesn't work that way. I was brought back to Charleston a year later for the anniversary of the Emmanuel 9, for the dedication of the park that now sits out there and so forth. Matter of fact, if you scan down my profile, you'll see me and Shirley Caesar sitting together. God bless you, Shirley. And sitting next to the mayor of Charleston, with Bernadine King, Martin Luther King's. I hope I didn't say her name, Bernadette or Bernadine, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm messing her name up. But it was Miss King. She was the keynote speaker. And I remember the young ladies who started the Hate Won't Win campaign. And all these pictures are here. This was 5 years ago, y'all. 5 years ago. In those 5 years, we have gone backwards because you all bought into the leaderless concept. There was no one to speak effectively about, yes, Bernice King, thank you. I didn't want to be disrespectful to her name, but I just couldn't recall it at the time. But no leader. And when I say a leader, I'm not talking about somebody who wants to be in the spotlight and say, I'm the king, I'm lead. This is not what this is about. Someone who can go and have the hard conversations and negotiations so that we come out on top, or at least it comes out to a fair decision. Someone who's willing to own up that we are not perfect and we have our own problems, but you will not subject us to those things that created the problem in the first place. That is the purpose of leadership. Also, the purpose of leadership is to be a reasoning voice in the times of chaos. So, those 5 years have taught me a few things. The first thing they taught me was that your own people are your own worst enemy. The second thing it taught me is that we must never forget what happened to those people in Charleston, ever. And what happened after it can never be erased from your mind. Oh, I did a scan this morning for Google. I even saw Black Lives Matter trying to take credit for the Bridge to Peace when they had jack shit to do with it. They had, matter of fact, they denounced it. Now, if you go read their history, they don't ease it in like they did it. They didn't have shit to do with that. Now say it publicly. And I ask any one of them to come out publicly and have a conversation with me so I can pull out the receipts and strip their ass naked. We know what happened, those of us who were there. But they hijacked y'all. Now, 5 years later, we have a global problem. 5 years later. What's going to happen? I don't know. But I know one thing. Before I go any further, before we fight another battle, before we do anything else, I think that we should all stop and remember those individuals. Because, yeah, they get a blurb in the newspaper or something like that, but nobody's going to really sit there and tell you that these people are gone and that when they died, it was supposed to have been the turning point in America. Cynthia Hurd, Susie Jackson, Ethel Lance, DePayne Middleton Doctor, Clementa Pinckney, Twanza Sanders, Daniel Simmons Sr., Sharonda Coleman Singleton, and Myra Thompson. I remember you. I salute you. You are casualties in an ongoing war. You were the turning point that put a lot of us on the path that we are today. You see, a lot of y'all like to dig around in mess. A lot of y'all like to keep mess going without trying to fix it. And if we're still doing the same thing today that we did 5 years ago, marching and all of this bullshit, then those people died for nothing because you have achieved nothing. And I reached a point After seeing how they blacked out the presidential campaigns, after watching how they let our movement be hijacked and taken over by some rich billionaire that wants to take your teeth away, after watching the continued abuse by the police, after watching that abuse expand to our women and our children, after watching the same old rhetoric being given to us, after watching all of that, I eventually began to realize that my job and my purpose was not to become the president of the United States and lead a bunch of killers, rapists, robbers, and invaders. It was actually to step into another role. You see, that was preparation. You see, I don't know how y'all don't understand this. You keep your friends close, but you keep your enemies closer. So I've gone through the processes. I understand the intricacies and the infrastructure of this government from the highest levels because I took the walk. The same way you cannot fight an army if you've never been in an army, if you don't understand how the military works, how they're supported, how they operate, how they deploy, how they strategize. If you've never done that, how the hell can you expect to fight them? And to all of you people who were too cowardly to put on a uniform before you knew better, all of you all who have never actually served in an organization that takes discipline, for all of you all who think that your opinion matters when sometimes we have to put our opinions in the parking lot and follow leadership, for all of you all who can't follow simple instructions because that was never a part of your life. So every time somebody comes along that tries to do something for everybody, you the first one to start crying about your opinion and your position instead of looking at the betterment for all, then you are the problem. And I realized that what we don't have is what we haven't had since the 60s. Nobody has stepped up to step behind the same podium that Malcolm X stood behind when they shot him. Nobody has decided to step behind the podium the way Martin Luther King did before they shot him. Nobody wants to step up there and put themselves in the crosshairs. Nobody. That's some selfish punk shit, and I'm not built like that. And I kept waiting for one of y'all to step up. They always want to say that, oh, it's the young people. Y'all act like the struggle just belongs to the young people. That's a cop-out. It's all of us, old people, middle-aged, young, everybody. Not the responsibility of the young folks to go out here and do some shit you haven't taught them about. How you expect them to overcome something you haven't educated them on? How you expect them to fight against an army when they are not an army that's unequipped? How do you expect them to be able to win when you haven't given them the resources to win except running around talking about, I'm scared for my child? So I decided to do it my damn self. And all of y'all out there, I'm going to say it one more time while I'm lifting up the 9 people who died 5 years ago. Y'all all upset about the people that died recently. We've been through this already. The problem is y'all still ain't bust a grape in a fruit fight yet, but you want somebody else to do it. So you can sit back like some scared Negro talking about, I knew that shit wasn't going to work. Look what they did. Well, come on, y'all do something. Stop trying to egg other motherfuckers on to do something that your punk ass won't do yourself. So we formed a militia. So we got together. We got organized. We got armed. And we studied our opponent very well. And while y'all all out in the street being obvious, bad boys move in silence. And we move in the dark. And all of the same people that's sitting around talking about, I think this and I think that. Don't nobody give a shit about what you think. Because last time I checked, I ain't never got shot by a thought. Now we calling for a formation. Now we calling black people. We calling you out. Put up or shut up. Lay down and stay down. This has been my morning mental, saluting the survivors of the Emmanuel 9. Peace and shalom to you.